Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a bi-weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your club and career. We are very excited to have Mr. David Woods, Director of Golf at the Vintage Club in La Quinta, California. David, welcome to the Catalyst webinar series. How are you today?
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, we know how busy you are. I mean, someone with 1.1 million Instagram followers. I can't imagine how busy you are just from keeping up with what's on your phone, let alone what you're doing day in, day out at the Vintage Club. What we've got, ladies and gentlemen, on the Catalyst webinar series today is we do a variety of different formats on the Catalyst. Sometimes we have presenters come on and do a PowerPoint presentation where they take the audience through the PowerPoint and speak to a series of slides, or other times we have presenters on and different influencers in the golf industry that we have on the webcast where we do a fireside chat, more of a Q&A interview style format, which is what we're doing this morning with David Woods from the Vintage Club. So we have a series of questions that we're going to ask him regarding his career, a little bit about what he does, particularly with his social media following and his teaching and just his operations and history and backstory in the golf business and how he got to where he is today. So David, if you're okay, we'll get right into it.
You got it. Hey, that'd be great if I had 1.1 million followers, but it's only 100,000. We're getting there.
All right, David. Obviously, you have one of the most exclusive cream of the crop jobs in the golf world, being the director of golf at the Vintage Club. Vintage Club is probably one of the most prestigious clubs in the world, and certainly in the Coachella Valley. You became a director of golf at the age of 27. Just a little backstory on David Woods. He's been the director of golf at the Vintage Club for the past 14 years. Prior to that, he was at Indian Ridge, where he was the director of golf. So he became a director of golf at the age of 27. What do you feel propelled you to that position at such a young age?
To be honest with you, I think a lot of luck, being kind of in the right place at the right time is always helpful. I was fortunate to work for a variety of great club professionals. I was an assistant pro at Indian Ridge prior to becoming the director of golf. And I think, you know, when you're hoping to get that first head pro job or director of golf job, you know, it's a pretty daunting, you know, look toward the future and can be kind of a nerve-wracking situation. But for me, I was very fortunate to have my first job be at a club that I was already very familiar with, starting at Indian Ridge. So when that job became open, I think just through the work I had done with getting to know the members very well and endearing myself to them, creating good relationships, because I think ultimately that's what it's all about in our business, is how you connect with people socially. That really was the main reason I got that job. Like I said, a lot of right place at the right time when an opportunity presented itself. And to me, and you may hear me say this again, but you know, getting these opportunities, I think, involves a little bit of luck and being in the right place at the right time. But keeping these jobs and building on them is where the skill set comes in.
I could certainly relate to that. I remember a friend of mine who's the general manager at Oakmont, Craig Cliver. He was an assistant at Lakeside when I was an assistant at San Gabriel. And we used to commiserate on how, you know, we're never going to get a head pro opportunity and we're stuck in neutral. And I could certainly relate to that feeling, especially if you are an assistant pro and you interview for a head pro position or two and don't get it. You start to, it's almost like a baseball player who's fallen into a strikeout slump. It's like the more strikeouts and the more you don't get on base, it almost psychologically, it makes the journey all the harder. So David, in 2008, the Vintage Club conducted a national search for a new director of golf after the retirement of their prior long-term pro. What do you feel stood out in your interview process that helped you secure the role?
It's a really interesting story if you'll allow me to tell it. I had no desire to be the director of golf at the Vintage Club. It wasn't even on my radar. I was quite happy being the director of golf at Indian Ridge. And frankly, it felt, when I saw that job posted, I thought it was far beyond my reach. And it, like I said, it didn't even touch my radar. Again, I think just building relationships with people and being in the right place at the right time. I just got a very, unusual phone call that turned into a life changer for me. And that was from Mr. Bill Bone, who was my former boss and one of the most talented country club community builders in America, who I'd gotten to know quite well through my time at Indian Ridge. And he and I had been talking over a period of time. He actually offered me the job at Toscana Country Club early on while I was at Indian Ridge. And it just became kind of contentious for him as being the former owner of Indian Ridge with the members who had just hired me there. And he and I both decided that, hey, maybe this isn't the best direction. Anyways, fast forward several months, and he called me. I remember I was driving down Country Club Drive here, and he called me on I want to say it was on a Tuesday, and said, "Hey, David, I just want to check in with you. I got a call from the Vintage Club Selection Committee. They've been doing a year-long national search for their director of golf. They've got all these candidates. This coming Thursday, they are flying their 6 or 7 finalists in from across the country to do their final day-long interview process to get closer to selecting their next director of golf, who was replacing Paul Lemke, who was an icon here for years, who was retiring, done a wonderful job, highly popular with our membership here." Anyways, Bill's reason for his call to me was, he said, "Hey, one of the candidates used to work at Indian Ridge, but for the life of me, I can't recall, or I didn't know him well enough." And at the time, and this was Gus Jones, who's now the general manager at Martis Camp. At the time, he was at Montreux in Reno, Nevada. And he said, "Do you know Gus? Because some friends of mine on the committee were inquiring about him." And I said, "Absolutely. Gus is fantastic. He would do a great job. He's done a wonderful job up there. I know him well. He's an excellent coach, excellent manager. They should definitely highly consider hiring him." So we just chatted for a minute, and he said, before we got off the phone, he says, why are you not interested? Is this a job that you'd be interested in? Because, this is Bill talking to me, and he thought highly of me. He said, "You're the best pro I know." And I said, "Gosh, you know what? I don't think that's for me." And obviously I wasn't called by Copland, the headhunter who had done the search. So I'm not on their list. And he said, "Well, if you could get an interview, would you be interested?" And I said, "Well, of course." So he got off the phone, probably called, his friend on the committee. And within an hour, I got a call from Dick Copland, who I'm sure did not want to make that call because I wasn't the part of the group that was selected.
They're paying a service to produce guys, and you weren't one of the guys they produced.
And Dick is fantastic and one of the leaders in that field and in our business. And I didn't really know Dick at the time. And he, and I'd say this if he was right here, Dick kind of gave me a call. Like, I could tell he was like, "I don't want to be calling you. I've been told to call you and set up a time for you to come over. Just so you know, we're way down the road. We've got these 6 finalists, which you are not one of, but they want to have you come over for an interview. And you know what, David, I think you should do it for the experience," was his answer to me. And I said, "I think I'll do that. That's fine." But then I said to him, I'm like, coincidentally on Thursday at I want to say it was at Thursday, this would have been 2 days later, Thursday at 3:00. He said, "I'm supposed to be there for my interview." And I said, "Well, unfortunately I have jury duty on Thursday and I'm not sure I can make it at that time." And obviously jury duty, I'd already called in. I was stuck going to that. He said, "You won't have any problem with it. Jury duty always ends at 2:00. That's when the judges cut out. And what do I know?" So I said, "Okay, I'll be there." I'm in the jury box at about 1:45. I had to slip a note to the bailiff and not tell a lie, but a white lie. My wife was pregnant at the time with my second child. And I slipped a 911 note to the bailiff to see if I could get out of this place because I was going to miss this interview. So I fortunately they let me out, and I raced back down from Indio over back to Indian Wells here, put my suit on in the parking lot at the Vintage.
No.
Which I'm sure I'm the only person that's ever done that in the 45-year history of the Vintage Club, and made it to the 3:00 interview on time. So it was a bit of a wild day, and just, you know, how I feel like I got the job because I was certainly an outsider. I wasn't part of the selected candidates, and I think that was an advantage for me. I had no expectations. I was in a job that I loved at Indian Ridge. It was treated wonderfully. I went in there happy, confident, and with nothing to lose because, I mean, honestly, I was already told that I had no chance, and then I was there for the experience. So it made me very relaxed. I just was myself and went in there and obviously I did a good job in that interview. But the crazy part about this, you know, here's a process that was going on for a year. I found out about the job on a Tuesday, interviewed on a Thursday, got a call on a Sunday to come back Monday morning. And I was like, wow, there was 7 of us and now there's 3 of us. This is great. And on Monday morning, I had an offer sheet in front of me. So in 6 days, I went from not knowing about a job to massive change in my career, which ultimately was a life changer for me.
As time went on, did you get any details how you got in the fast lane to going from being an outlier, not even one of the 6, to being one of the final 3 in 4 days? Did you get any details as to how you did that, and what was it about your interview that catapulted you to that position?
Yeah, I think 2 things. I think it goes back to my earlier statement that in our business as golf professionals, it's way less about skill set, although the people with great skills seem to rise to the top, but it's ultimately about connections you make with other people, your ability to communicate. Obviously, that impression that I left on Bill Bone many years prior to that gave him the confidence to put his name, which is very important to him, on me and the members of the Vintage Club, because Bill was a past member of the Vintage. He lived here for years. They felt that his recommendation held a lot of weight. That's certainly what got me in the door. I would not have gotten the interview without him. But I think, a combination of their trust of him and also just some of the questions. I mean, obviously, we were all asked the same series of questions. That's how Copland operates. You know, he provides the committee with X number of questions. We don't know those questions, but each person's asked the same question. And I do recall one of the questions they asked me. They said, describe you. It was a very strange and difficult question to answer. So describe yourself in a light. Describe yourself, something that you've done in your career that would show us in the best light. And I had to really think about, what that was. And I remember taking a sip of water and trying to just think about this before I answered quickly. And it was a story about a gentleman that I was coaching at Indian Ridge, who towards the end of one of our seasons told me, David, it's been great taking lessons from you, but this is our last lesson. And I said, okay, that's fine. You're leaving for the summer. Look forward to seeing you in the fall. We'll get back at it. He says, no, this is my last golf lesson I'll ever take because I've got type 1 diabetes and I'm having my, I want to say it was his right leg below the knee removed because of the diabetes situation he was in. And that's going to end my golf. And I remember saying to him, I said, listen, that doesn't have to end your golf. There's lots of people, that play with artificial legs. I'm sure they're going to fit you. It might take some time, but I'll be here for you to try to help you, extend your golf career at that time. And he said, he kind of brushed it off and blah, blah, blah. The fall comes around and he calls me. He says, gosh, you know what? I'm feeling okay. I'd like to try hitting some balls. So we started doing that. And I want to say a year later, he had to have a second leg removed. This guy had 2 artificial legs. I was still coaching him. And I remember him saying to me at some point that how special it was that I encouraged him. And it really would have changed his life to not be able to play golf. I remember at the time I was saying, and I gave this guy a lesson last week. He's still playing. And this was 3 years later. And I think a lot of people were kind of moved by the fact that, it showed that I cared about our membership in a certain way. But that's pretty much the only question that I remember kind of looking at faces in the room and them reacting in a way that stood out. But I think ultimately, it was a big shift for the club here. I was 33 at the time, replacing a 70-year-old icon. And I always say I was 33 and I looked 23 at the time. So it was definitely a world of difference for the membership here, in taking some time to get used to a new golf professional, but it's worked out great.
Well, you're segueing into our next question perfectly. In situations where a young professional comes into a head professional or director of golf position where the predecessor was a local legend, or as we use that term not loosely, but a god for that membership, those are huge shoes to fill. What are some pieces of advice that you could give young professionals that are filling a role where the predecessor was highly regarded and had done so much good and built so much member trust over their tenure there? What's some advice that you could give that young professional?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think every professional has their own unique set of skills, and you have to recognize what you're good at, what you're not good at, where you need improvement. You also need to recognize what were the skill sets that the previous pro was regarded so highly for, and try to do your best to live up to those. Now, in Paul's situation, Paul was revered by the membership here. He had a knack of remembering things that were unbelievable to everyone. You could bring a guest here 4 years ago, and when that guest came back, he would remember the guest's name and maybe the guest's granddaughter's name. It's incredible skill that he has that, frankly, I don't know anyone who has a skill that in that regard to the level of Paul. His main role was to be the starter. He started play every day, socialized with the members down on the range tee. So I had to figure out how can I fill some of those shoes, but also how can I see opportunities in other areas of the business or our operation that maybe I had an opportunity to enhance. And that's what I tried to do right away. And some of it was just as small things as, making sure we brought in a brand new fleet cart that was 7 levels better than the fleet that was here, and just starting some new practices here on the way we operated, the type of employees that we brought in. And I tried to not make too many changes in the first year. I mean, frankly, I was just trying to keep my head above water, try to have some synergy with the current staff, and spend most of the time trying to get to know the members. So, the first year, I think, for anyone in a new role is probably pretty rocky, and I was no exception to that. Like, I wouldn't say it was rocky from the standpoint of challenges of thinking I made a mistake, but just, all of the things that come along with getting acquainted with a ton of new people. So you got to be yourself. You got to believe in yourself. And I would say that when you go to any new role, that is an opportunity for you to feel very self-conscious, and you have to kind of snap out of it and remember that you're there for a reason. You're very good at what you do, and you have to just trust yourself and move forward.
Excellent. And in terms of the longevity now, you've been at the Vintage Club for almost 15 years. What are some key components of your work ethic or your work philosophy that lends itself to being a long-term director of golf?
That's I think really easy to answer. This is a club that deserves excellence, and I think that kind of encourages me to always be pushing forward. I never try to stop providing the members with an exceptional experience that is second to none. Neither does my staff. I think it's very easy for head golf professionals, because I've seen this many times, and early on in my career, I had the urge to do this, and thank goodness that I never did. But I think some head professionals hire staff that they feel are slightly less than them. And it sounds crazy, but I see it all the time, because of the insecurity of maybe that will make that pro not look as good or not be as important. I try as hard as I can to surround myself with incredible people. It's really not about the skill set that an individual has, because a lot of these things can be learned. It's more about who you surround yourself with, making sure that you're aware of what you're great at, understanding and being internal to be able to look and see, what could I be better at? Where do I fall short? And making sure that you offset yourself with people that can fill in those gaps. Like, for example, my head golf professional, Dan Anderson, who's an incredible partner of mine. We've worked together this whole time I've been at the Vintage. He does an excellent job. He and I agree on 99.9% of how we overall run the operation. We think the same way. In other ways, we're very different people. He has skill sets that are far greater than mine in certain areas of our operation. And I have skill sets in a part of the operation that he doesn't have. And that's why we blend well together. And I would say that works with all of our people. I have an incredible buyer, Lindsay Moe, who's like one of the best in the business. I have a staff of assistants who are, go above and beyond to make the members' lives easier and make my life easier. They recognize that if they're doing better for themselves, it's going to look good to us, and we're going to help propel them in their career.
You've recently built what looks to be one of the most spectacular golf performance centers in the country. Can you tell us a little bit about the Paddock?
Yeah, the Paddock is basically a coach's dream. It's been a long time in the making. We've been planning on building a performance center for years, but it just, at any club, you've got a capital project list. And it just kept kind of slipping further down that list. And fortunately, it made it to the top of that list in the last year and a half. And I was tasked with, putting the project together. And fortunately, I had great help from my golf superintendent who helped us with the construction side. But we really wanted to create an amenity here that was second to none. As we do with all of our amenities here, we want to make sure it's best in class. So we studied golf performance centers all over the country, not only as far as the equipment that is kept in these in these facilities, but also just the interior and the feeling and the vibe and the overall appearance and feel that I wanted for this facility. Was I wanted to be equivalent to a custom home at the Vintage, that you basically could hit a golf ball out of the living room. And we definitely attained that. Anyone who's been here, just their jaw drops when they walk into this place, because you could honestly live in this building. It's 2,000 square feet. It has an incredible living room, kitchen area, where we have all the amenities, snacks, whatever for visitors. We have 2 exceptionally large bays. A lot of indoor teaching facilities where we're hitting outdoor feel cramped to me. So we just wanted to make sure that inside there's enough room that, if someone's taking a lesson, their spouse could comfortably sit off to the side out of view and spend a little time in there. Or we could have 4 or 5 people in there conducting a small clinic. And then we wanted to make sure that all the amenities that went along with it, as far as club fitting, were built in there. And we thought about, do we bring in a true spec, or do we, try to partner with somebody? And ultimately, that's just not our brand here. We do everything purely on our own. So we basically built ourselves, a club champion or a true spec for lack of a better term, where we have over 30,000 different combinations of shaft and head options. We have all the major OEMs in the drawers with heads for fitting. We did a deal with Mitsubishi Chemical with a bunch of really high-end shafts, where we can do upgrades to the OEM equipment. So it's dramatically increased our coaching. It's dramatically increased our club fitting because of the ability to quantify results. And I would encourage anyone, you don't need a building like this, but you do need a TrackMan if you're fitting. You do need a flight scope. There's so many launch monitor, the full swing launch monitor right now that you can get for, quite a bit less money than a TrackMan. But if you put members, and if you're, if that's your role to be helping the club sell product, and you're helping your student play better golf, it's pretty easy to take a member's current equipment and prove that you can upgrade them.
Now, you've been through now 2 summers with the Paddock. Is that true?
No, this is actually going to be our first summer. It opened in December of this past season. We actually started building it. It was unbelievable. We started building it 2 summers ago. And through COVID, it just got stalled out due to all the regulations from the city. And it was a really a learning process for me. Obviously, I'd never built something like this before, but all the regulations when you're building a building like that it really takes a lot of planning and time. And it was actually probably a blessing because it gave us even more time to make sure we had exactly what we wanted inside this building.
Now, you have a tremendous team of PGA professionals there, and your bench is full, so to speak. The vintage historically gets very, very quiet in the summer months. I would venture to say that 90% of your community is gone during those summer months, where more of the, some of the more entry level or blue collar clubs in the Coachella Valley are seeing more and more of a year-round presence increasing because of value and a lot of other factors. Do you see the Paddock staying busy, keeping members in town, or getting people to come back to see their teaching staff to use the Paddock during the summer months?
That's a good question. I think at many other desert courses, we're seeing an increase of more year-round living. At this level of club, we're not experiencing that. I mean, it's our members belong to multiple clubs, and I think that as much as I love the Coachella Valley, if I had the option to not be here for 6 months, I'd certainly take it. The weather gets pretty darn hot, and our members love their time here. But when the clock strikes May 1 or May 30th, they're out of here. So I think, from an instruction standpoint, yes, the people that live nearby, some of our San Diego folks and LA folks may venture back. But I don't think it's really a factor in summer visitation.
Interesting, because I know Bighorn, since the pandemic, Bighorn's seen, twice as many members staying there basically year round and using the club all summer long. Yeah, it's one of those trends that we've seen since the pandemic. So that's very interesting.
And it could
speaking of your backlog of PGA professionals, how many teaching professionals do you have on staff?
Technically, we have 9 coaches on staff. Some coach more than others. We have 2 dedicated coaches that just coach full time. Jim Wilkinson and Reeve Cricky, both are excellent coaches. I coach a fair bit. And then our other assistants coach sporadically. Colin Tucker's one of my assistants. He coaches a fair bit. His coaching has increased a lot this year. I think just through the pandemic, like lessons for every coach across the nation have increased, which is great for growing the game. But yeah, we have a nice stable here. We actually have 19 pros on staff here. It's a unique situation where our entire outside service team is made up of PGA professionals, which I would probably venture to guess that it's maybe the only club in America that has their outside service staff. That's all. And frankly, I think all of ours, maybe other than 1 or 2, are PGA members. A couple of them are directors of golf at clubs in the summer, head golf professionals. We have, our outside manager, Evan Mitchell is the head golf professional at Top 100 course, Rock Creek Cattle Company in Montana. But Evan's a perfect example of a guy who recognizes the value of spending time here amongst us and more importantly, amongst our membership to help build his career.
That's incredible. There's so many people on this webcast, David, that when you said that number, they're like, wow, I'm just trying to find 1 or 2 good assistants. And you've got 19.
I think it's interesting. It is, don't get me wrong, I recognize the advantage that I have for a number of reasons of attracting pros, the opportunity to come here. I'll be honest with you, we built that outside service job into a highly paid job. And I feel like it's a formula that way more clubs should use and don't. Our guys honestly make minimum wage. Our outside guys make minimum wage. But I built a fund through the members that we charge all members a dollar amount, and it could be any dollar amount at any club that's commensurate with the club that's working on this. We bill every single member at the beginning of the year a dollar amount on their account. We send them a note, let them know that this is being charged. They all have, this is all voluntary. All they have to do is call accounting and say, please remove me from the list. Please credit my account. I'll be happy to give gratuity as I see fit. And at our club, the vast majority, like probably 98% of people don't do that. They just, recognize that the service level is exceptional. And what that does is it creates a pool of dollars that sits in an account, and we augment the pay of our outside team. So that allows them to make more money. I partnered with Mercedes-Benz a number of years ago to create an environment where we have the ability to take our members to the airport back and forth. And that was a service that started slow, but just built into a monster. Like, our boys are running to the airport 2-3 times a day, picking up members, taking them back, taking, guest places, running kids to Coachella during Coachella week at 4 a.m, driving people all over. Our guys will do anything that they're asked. And I let them keep 100% of the revenue they make from those rides. So we charge less than it would cost for a member to take an Uber to the airport. But what an advantage for them to go in a Mercedes-Benz and being driven by someone they know on the driving range. So there are ways to make it better for yourself as the pro. Like, the excellent job our red shirts do, it makes my life better and gives me, a pat on the back. When, if a member, said to me, David, what is the thing that you do best in the eyes of the members? I would hope that the members think that what I do best is provide them with an exceptional array of staff. That's my key job, is how do I provide them with incredible people, to service them every day. So again, yes, we have an advantage that we're the vintage, so we can hire 10 golf pros, but golf pros want to come work for us because they know we can, that we can provide them with a great source of revenue for that summer. They also know that vintage on their resume, there's no doubt. They know that I have a history of placing a lot of guys in head pro jobs. So you have to build that. It's the job of the director of golf to build these processes, instead of just saying, oh, well, we can't get it because my club's not a well-known club. That's somebody that's looking very narrow, a narrow look at their prospects. So all it takes is get one golf pro to work outside, just one guy to be your leader outside. And then slowly over years, you'll attract more guys. You just got to figure out a way that works best with your club.
Well spoken, David. And again, another perfect segue into the next question. How many PGA professionals have you aided in mentoring onto head pro and director of golf positions?
You know what? I'm not sure what the exact number is. It's probably in the 15 years that I've been here. It's got to be close to 13, 14, 15 guys. We've had some years where we've had like 3-4 guys in 1 year go. Most notably, I'd say the guys that stick out to me, my closest friend, Charlie Peterson, who was my assistant way back in the day at Indian Ridge, who took my job as director of golf when I left to come to the vintage. That was, that was probably the first time that I felt, so grateful that I had an opportunity to help one of my good friends, and he didn't need my help. He was an excellent pro, and he would have been the pick anyways in my book. Later, he moved to Toscana, which was another great opportunity for him to move forward. He just does a great job over there. Marty Matsuzaki was my assistant here at Indian Ridge. When Charlie moved to Toscana and there was a head pro job open, we were able to put Marty into that role. Clayton Moe is the head golf professional at Stone Eagle, worked for me for years. I had Jake Edwards moved to Tethrow in Bend, Oregon. Jeff Brummett went to the Quarry. I mean, there's a lot of guys that have moved on to great roles here. Recently, we've had Penn Sad is at Escondido, which is a real high-end club in Texas. Jeff Beesy's the head pro at MPCC. So we've had a lot of people come through our program and move on to great jobs. And And I think ultimately, like, that's our responsibility here is, how do we give people the tools? How do we recognize tools they already have and help foster those tools? And then just basically through the reach that we have here with other head golf professionals to kind of place them. And it kind of, oftentimes it just starts with summer placement of assistance jobs. So when a guy comes here as a red shirt, we try to get them a summer job. They might already have a great summer job, but if they don't, we try to move them into a more known resume building summer job so that by the time they're ready and move into our shop. That's another piece I didn't touch on is of attracting golf professionals to work outside for me is I made a promise to them that I will not hire from outside. I only hire from within. So if you're going to work as a golf professional in my golf shop, you will have been a red shirt here. In my time here, I want to say there's only been one guy who's come in here that wasn't coming in from a position of a red shirt. And they also know that it's not through hierarchy, which I don't believe in at all, or longevity of time out there. You could be a first year guy and move in, or you could be out there 6 years and move in. It's going to be the guy who fits the need at the time. And it's not always the best guy. It might be the guy who fits the need of the guy that left in the space that we needed for that role. So there's a lot of tools to attract people. You just got to figure out which tools are going to be best for you.
Fantastic. Kind of getting into, obviously, David, that's what a tremendous answer to lead and mentor so many guys. As we all know, one of the biggest feathers in the cap of any PGA professional at the end of his or her career is to sit back and say, how many associates or other PGA members did I directly mentor and help on their journey to becoming head golf professionals and director of golfs, and so that they can mentor and lead others. And I don't know if there's anybody out there that's doing that better or more streamlined, and just what a great product that you have there. Along those same lines, obviously you're an influencer amongst your team and the people that you lead inside and outside at the Vintage, but you're also a tremendous golf influencer on Instagram with over 108,000 Instagram followers. How in the world did that happen?
You know what? Let's first start by recognizing that social media is just like a make-believe world, right? It means way less than people give it credit for. It's basically designed to give all of us a distraction of something to flip through at the end of our day. I think people get a little wrapped up into it. However, used properly, it can be a massive business tool. And it's been that way for me accidentally. A number of years, I don't remember when I got on Instagram and created an account, but it was, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 years ago. And I think, I got on there just, again, I would think I was on vacation in the summertime and I'm like, oh, this is fun. And because I'm a club pro and I have high respect, obviously, for myself and the club, I'm super mindful for, what I post. I don't post anything on social media that I wouldn't want my club president looking at. I just made a commitment to making it strictly golf. Once in a blue moon, you might see a picture of my dog on there or something, but it's strictly a golf page. And I think it grew quickly because I was posting a lot of golf swings that people like to see. I'm fortunate to be around a lot of PGA Tour players. Their swings are scattered all over my Instagram page, and I don't know. I can't really answer how it grew. When the PlaneMate came aboard, it grew even greater. But I think a lot of it's algorithm too. It's much harder to grow accounts now than it was 5, 6, 7 years ago. I think the same for TikTok, which I'm not on. I think early on people, you could have 1 million followers on TikTok. Now to get that, I think it'd be very difficult. Anytime a social media platform starts, it's much easier to get that growth, but you got to be diligently posting. It honestly, people say, well, how do you keep up with that? It takes zero time for me to post a swing. Like I can post a swing and a comment in, well, I'm putting my socks on in the morning. It doesn't take any time or effort at all. But it has been fun. It's been a connector. I've met so many people throughout our business through social media, which has been great. It's drawn actually a ton of positive energy for the Vintage Club. I would argue to say that even though the Vintage Club is extremely prestigious club, there's probably many people across the country who never heard of it and saw it on Instagram. So I think it's been positive. I think it can be abused. I think people need to be very careful. I know a lot of golf pros are tentative about social media, and they should be. But I think used properly, it's a valuable tool. And if you're a coach, all the coaches out there, and you don't have a social media presence, you're missing an opportunity. It's not for everybody. You might choose to not do it, but I think there's an opportunity for sure to grow your brand, to expand. Let's take, for example, someone says, okay, I coach at a private club. I'm not even allowed to give members lessons outside. Why would I post tips on social media? And my answer would be, if that social media presence grows for a coach, it's going to be recognized by other pros, and that might lead you to be on the top 50 coaches in California list. So why would you not want to do that? That will enhance your ability at your own club, because that's a feather in your cap. So you just got to think of it from that point of view. As long as you're being professional and handling it in a way that puts yourself and your club in a good light, I don't see any downside.
Now, was the Instagram, forgive me for not, I should ask you this before, but was the Instagram presence a key factor in you becoming a member of the Taylormade advisory board, or had that already taken place?
No, I was already on the board. I've been a member of the Taylormade staff and family for over 20 years. Again, I think just networking through the years. We had a fairly large Taylormade account at Indian Ridge, because I was always a believer. I wouldn't say we push Taylormade. Taylormade pushes itself. It's the best brand in golf, in my humble opinion. And I've been on the Taylormade board now. And for those of you that don't know what the board is, it's pretty much the only board at an OEM in existence to this level, in my opinion. It's made up of 12 of the top, in Taylormade's opinion, the top selection of directors of golf and head professionals across the country at clubs that are of influence. And it's a huge honor to be a part of that team. I've gotten to know Bob Ford and Daryl Kessner and, Casey Reamer at Cypress. I got to know these guys so well by the times, the couple times a year that our board gathers. And I'm super grateful for Taylormade for allowing me to be a part of that. And it's given me a glimpse inside of the company to recognize how devoted they are to our game, how passionate everyone who works at Taylormade really is about growing the game of golf and being the best in class and being innovators. They were the first to come out with the metal wood. They were first to come out with the carbon face wood. And I think the innovations are just going to continue to grow. I mean, it seems like when products come out every year, like, God, how can they keep getting better? But I can promise you they're getting better. We get to see stuff that's upcoming, and it's pretty spectacular. I'd be shocked if every OEM in our business doesn't have a carbon face driver in the next few years. I'd be shocked. So they're definitely innovative with a great team, and it's a real pleasure to be a part of that squad.
Well, fantastic. Speaking about a little bit on technology, in your professional opinion, what do you think's next in the technological advancement of equipment?
You know what? It's hard to say. I think that there is room to grow for sure. Like I just mentioned there, this advancement this year with carbon couldn't be done several years ago. Taylormade's figured out a path forward to create more ball speed based on a different material that's never really been successfully applied to the club face. And like I said, you will see other OEMs do this in the future, because it's just frankly technology that works. So yeah, it's hard to say. We can't really discuss what's coming up down the road, but it's always going to be special. I think you're going to see a lot of share move around from different companies. Certain companies have a higher share of the market in certain aspects of equipment than others. I think you're going to see some of that share get eaten into because it's a priority for a lot of these companies.
And in terms of how we market, you know, so many manufacturers in the past, it's like you put a lot of commercials out there, you get a bunch of big name tours to tour players to play your stuff. To kind of piggyback on the social media topic, how do you see the marketing of golf products, both, you know, soft and hard, evolving over the next 3 to 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, it's all digital. I mean, we all remember seeing like the infomercials on the Golf Channel, or we see print ad in Golf Digest. That stuff, while there might still be some of it, is passe for sure. It's all digital marketing. It's all using funnels to drop, you know, constant ads when you scroll through on the internet, as well as through social media. And then ultimately, when you look at the touring professionals that have a massive following, the PIP money, for example, on the PGA Tour has woken up a lot of players who were kind of, you know, passe on social media, and given an opportunity for the people who kind of were ahead of the curve on it. Ricky Fowler, for example, has always had a big social media following. His golf hasn't been as good in the last few years, but I guarantee you a big component of his off-course brand revenue comes from a tie-in to his reach in social media. So you're going to see a lot of guys that get signed by these OEMs. If you went down the list and saw their, you know, there's a balance between their position in the world of golf as well as their reach amongst followers.
So David, final question today. What do you feel are the biggest issues facing golf professionals in the years ahead? And what advice do you have for young professionals who are hoping to someday be a director of golf at a great club?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question right now. But I think it's actually probably the opposite answer that you'd expect me to give. I think the biggest challenge right now falls with the operators of clubs, the inability to get staff right now. And when we do get staff across the board at all clubs across America right now, it feels less than. One thing that the pandemic has done, in my opinion, that truly has done a disservice to the country, is it's made people get kind of comfy working from home, or not wanting to put the same effort in. And that also goes back to social media. People see this fake world on social media where everything's so wonderful, and they're like, well, I'd like to have that. And they kind of forget that requires a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort. And I think we live in a right now society. And we all know that it's not right now. It takes, you know, when you see someone say, oh, how did so-and-so get that great job? Well, they don't see the 15, 20 years of sweating and blood to get to where that spot was. And I think we live in a world where that's harder, because it's getting harder to attract quality staff. So shifting gears to the golf professional, I actually think there's never been a better opportunity for a young golf professional right now, because their competition is weak. There are less great golf professionals out there, less people going into our business because they don't want to work long hours, and they're more concerned about the work-life balance, talk that you hear all the time. There's just an article in Golf Digest. And maybe it's controversial, but it's my least favorite term. I can't stand it. It's yes, we know we have to have a balance in our life, but to me, it's like, work really hard in the early part of your life so you have opportunity to have more time in the later part of your life. You can't just coast along, saying that I want to have 11 trips throughout the year and work here. And that's just not how our business works. It's just the bottom line. So if you're one of those guys who doesn't feel that way, that's like me, and says, hey, listen, I'm willing to put the time and effort in. I'm willing to work really hard. I'm willing to sacrifice. There's never been a better time for you than right now, because you're up against weak competition. I tell it to my 15-year-old when he sees all this stuff in the news and, oh God, doom and gloom. I said, buddy, keep doing well at school. I tell my daughter and my son, keep doing great at school. The competition's getting less and you're getting smarter. Like, if you just have that attitude, you're going to do well in life. And I think the same applies for golf professionals. So you just have to really, put your head down and do the best you can.
Fantastic, David. We are definitely like-minded professionals. I mean, this business is, it's vocational, and it's, you have to put the time in and you have to work the hours and you have to commit. And there's no two ways about it. I mean, that work ethic and that philosophy is what built this country, even outside the golf business. So I
100%.
agree wholeheartedly with you. And David, on behalf of the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA, thank you so much for carving out this time. Kind of a joke for the attendees on the webinar today. I had asked David to come on and present, I think back in December or January, and you're like, "Are you kidding? I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle of my peak season. How about we get something towards the tail end?" And thank goodness we were able to dial this in, because obviously, you know, David, your insight and your experience and you sharing your insight experience is so beneficial to so many of us PGA professionals. We're just grateful that you carved out the time to be with us today. For everybody on the webcast, you will receive 1 MSR credit for watching David's interview this morning, and we will be uploading this to YouTube. And those that are watching the Catalyst webinar after the fact through the SCPGA Catalyst landing page, you will be taking, will be required to take a 10-question quiz on today's interview. And upon passing that with a score of 70% or higher, you'll earn 1 MSR credit for watching David's Catalyst this morning. Very important right now, because we are in an MSR year. This is the June is the last of the 3-year cycle on the MSR points. So hopefully we all get those in and go forward from there. But David, again, on behalf of the Education Committee for the SoCal PGA, thank you very much for your time today. Everybody joining the Catalyst webinar, thank you very much for your support. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, John.